What is up, Nerf Nation? I'm Naptown Nerf, and this is Typhon. Build video starts now. Alright, so the start of any good integration, you have to remove everything and get down to the base shells. So let's jump right in. Okay, you guys, so this is kind of where I'm at so far, and it takes quite a bit of time and effort to get to where this is right now, but it's coming together pretty nicely. I'm pretty happy with it so far, and I think I need to add one more blaster actually to this to try to fill in this area. So I think I've decided to use a red Zeus. I thought since we had a blue Nemesis and a white Hera, we needed to add a red rival blaster into the mix, and this one I think is gonna be perfect for the job. I got this at a Goodwill outlet. It's in pretty rough condition, so I had no other plans but to cut it up, and this part right here I think might fit really nicely up in this area and give me a nice placement over my shoulder, but it's actually going to be, you know, instead of being a foregrip, it's going to be kind of a shoulder rest and be backwards. So hopefully that works out. All right, that part is on there and looking good. We definitely have some work to do to make it look cohesive there, but and there's some gap filling obviously up in here and whatnot, but I'll have to figure out how I want to go about doing that. And there's been an interesting surprise as it's got this nice gap and negative space through there, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it or not. It kind of is going to depend on if I find anything I really think will fit in there nicely and make it look even better. But definitely some interesting things, and I think this turned out really nicely and it feels really good. So I'm very happy with the comfort, and now we get to move on and work on the cosmetic stuff and start attaching some things. Alright you guys, so I made a little plate here out of polycarbonate that will just fit right in here, and we'll cover up that area. So that's how I solved that little ugliness right there. And then I'll need to fill in this area up here and this area down here. That shouldn't be too difficult. And then obviously do the same on the other side. Alright you guys, I have a very small portion of the Zeus connected here temporarily, but I have it lined up, and it's allowed me to kind of get to work on the other side, and I've covered that with some, or the gaps with some polycarbonate. But I think it's about time to secure the Hera to the Nemesis. Well, the thing is together. It is epoxied in many different places. It is definitely one solid blaster now. I think I'm going to attempt to use part of this Zeus, maybe this portion here to fill in here, and maybe even have a tack rail on there. We'll see if that works, and I like the way it looks. Just to kind of bring the two blasters together a little bit more. so they don't look like one blaster sitting on top of another, at least as much. So we'll see if that kind of helps that transition a little bit there, and if I like it. Alright you guys, so actually a lot of work has happened since the last time I talked to you, but I went ahead and finished up this part, and all this is filled in, and this has been attached and with the two-part epoxy, so it's on there permanently. And I went ahead and I toyed with that idea of cutting out the piece here and placing it here, although I didn't really care for how the lines matched up. Like there's these ridges here on this, and it was just too much happening, I felt like. Not to mention the fact the Zeus is not symmetrical, so the other side wouldn't really work out at all, at least how I wanted, and I wasn't super pleased with this side. So, you know, that's what happens sometimes with projects like this. You have an idea and you have to see how it works. If you don't like it, it's okay. Scratch it, move on to the next idea. So I went ahead and just cut out a piece of polycarb, and this took quite a while because cutting this stuff with the Dremel and shaping it perfectly to fit in here is a bit time consuming. But I've done one half, and that is just about ready to be secured in there. But before I do that, I'm going to actually use this to trace my other piece that'll be on the other side, that is basically the same, almost identical to this, or close enough to start out with, and then we can kind of shape it to make it fit perfectly on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and do that, trace that out, and then we'll lock this down with some two-part epoxy and keep rolling. Alright, so we're coming along nicely. We got this all filled in here. Everything's been filled in back in here now with some epoxy sculpt. And now I need to fill in this little part here also with epoxy sculpt. And epoxy sculpt is this stuff. You can get it on Amazon. Link will be in the description. But this is what I use to fill in big gaps like this that need to be shaped nicely and sculpted, I guess, in a way. And I really like this stuff over normal epoxy putty because this gives you probably at least an hour to 2 hours of work time, which is really nice. So you don't have to rush, and you don't feel like everything has to be perfect, or you don't have to sand quite as much because you get it pretty nice and smooth before it dries. So I highly recommend using epoxy sculpt on big gaps like in here, or filling in like a curved surface or something like that. Now if it's a small gap or actually bonding the two shells together, I always use my plastic welder. That's what's been used on pretty much everything here in terms of the connection between the two shells. This part being put in here, this part, everything was adhered with plastic weld DevCon epoxy. It has MMA in it, which is the important part. Highly recommend that. Loctite makes a very good version also. So whatever you can find, I recommend that. But yeah, we're here, we're ready to go. We just have to do this part. It's already been done on the other side, right here, as you can see. So I just have to mirror that, and we will be ready to move along. Okay, you guys, I'm not sure where we left off with this thing, but I have this drilled out here. This will be the firing trigger for the Nemesis. And on the other side of the shell, I've put a little hole here for a switch that will light up some LEDs. and I've masked off an area here that I'm gonna light up with LEDs, and then I'm gonna fill in this with some plastic sheet and light up behind these holes with some LEDs. Okay, you guys, I've just put in probably 10 to 12 hours just masking off this blaster. First we hit it with a black vinyl dye, then I masked off a few areas, then I hit it with a gunmetal Duplicolor perfect match and masked off the green areas that you see, and now I'm gonna hit it with a white vinyl dye so we can get a really nice base coat for the red that will go on top of that. And it really makes that red pop a lot better when you hit it with a white vinyl dye first. So that's what we're gonna do, get everything all the same color again for that last coat. So hopefully it all goes well. Hopefully all the mask is done well. There's a lot of it, so I'm sure there will be a mistake or two along the way, but nothing that hopefully can't be fixed. Let's get going. Alright, you guys, the white vinyl dye is on, it's dry, and now we're going to hit it with this sweet red metallic Duplicolor perfect match. Let's go. Alright, you guys, well, I think this thing is ready for a very intense rewire with a few MOSFETs involved and a few LEDs also. So I went ahead and cut out some plastic sheet and then sanded it down, and then we will install that in here and do the same on the other side. Glue that down, and that will give us an area there so we can deflect the light, which is pretty cool. Should be a cool look with some LEDs in there. So I've got my hot glue gun going, and I'll lock that down with some hot glue, and then we will do the other side. Okay, you guys, I have this thing wired up and we are ready to test. I have a big pack of D batteries here, which hopefully will give us enough power to see if it's working. So we'll rev. We look good there. That's good. Yes. All right. Sounds good to me. I'm gonna just try this small 2S LiPo first. Hopefully it'll be okay. Alright, I think it's working, but we're gonna run it on 3S, so hopefully that will be fine. Whoa, 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 whoa! And smoke. I don't know why, but I guess it cannot handle the 3S. It worked fine when we went 2S, 3S, immediately blew it. I think we have the wiring correct. I think I need a bigger MOSFET, unfortunately. Alright, you guys. Well, thanks to my good friend Brian Hoffer, we have a number of MOSFETs that are 190 amps, which are much larger than the ones I was using. The ones I had been using are great for most Nerf things, but with powering 4 rival motors, it was just not good enough. Even when I connected 2 in parallel, it wasn't quite enough. So I'm hoping this does a trick. If not, we have some relays that he gave me. So those are another option that does a similar sort of thing. And since there's so much shelf space, there's room for something this massive in here. But I'm going to try the MOSFET first, and then we'll go to this if that doesn't work. I hope that's a good sign. Alright, you guys, Typhon is complete. Very happy with how it turned out. It took quite a bit of effort to get this thing up and running. There were definitely hiccups along the way, but that is going to be the case with any massive project like this, and this one sure is massive. Typhon, I think, is a very fitting name for this huge rival blaster. If you guys don't know, Typhon is the monster of all monsters. He is a beast. This is a BFG if I've ever seen one, maybe a BMFG if I've ever seen one, but yeah, it is huge. Absolutely love it, but with it resting over the shoulder like this, the weight is very well distributed. You have your firing button here for the Nemesis. You have your rev trigger here that revs both flywheels, and this thing is super loud, and so it is definitely a beast. And then of course the Hera fires semi-auto still from its normal trigger. So let's go ahead and put a few shots over the chronograph and see what this thing's doing. Alright, I'm going to start out shooting a few shots over the chronograph with the Hera, and then we'll move on to the Nemesis. 120, and I think I need to move back a few steps because that almost went into the pond. Alright, now we're in the neighbor's yard a little bit, but that's okay. And we'll go ahead and fire off a few more. 123, 119, 122. So right around that 120 range, pretty darn good for rival rounds, I think. We'll go ahead and fire off a few with the Nemesis now. 128, 137, 129. So the Nemesis fires a little bit harder, more around that 130 range. So pretty darn good performance, pretty, standard performance off of a 3S LiPo. So the performance is definitely there. Let's go ahead and just fire this thing off for fun. Alright, you guys, wanted to show you the LEDs. So I thought that was definitely a nice touch. Very, very cool. And it actually runs off of a 9-volt battery instead of the LiPo, which I think is nice also. So you can show those off in a dim or night setting without the LiPo attached there. So pretty cool.
Alright you guys, I hope you enjoyed the build video of Typhon. Let me know any of your questions in the comments section below. Don't forget to check that description for added details about the blaster and its build process. Also, check me out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and don't forget to look at my Patreon. If you can support me there, it would allow me to do more awesome builds like this. I would greatly appreciate it, even if it's only $1 a month. It would greatly help out this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. Don't forget to smash that like button. Let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Please subscribe. And as always guys, peace out.